Hey guys, it's Holly, and today we'll be having a look at this custom fluffy brick built minifigure scale version by TommyC Bricks. So Tommy sent this to me to my PO box for me to review for you guys, but this is not paid in any sort of way. This was a gift, and I did want to review it, especially after seeing everyone's reaction to the basilisk earlier in the year. This is kind of a similar thing, but with fluffy, and it's really interesting as well because both of those creatures have actually been done recently in the latest wave of summer Harry Potter sets, so I will later on be comparing this to the fluffy from the Fluffy Encounter set, but for now we're just going to take a look at the brick built fluffy on its own. If you guys do want to make this fluffy for yourself, I will leave the link to Tommy's website in the description down below where you can purchase the instructions, and then from there you'll also get a parts list so you can purchase the bricks yourself. So let's take a close look at it. So here is the fluffy build, and this build contains 287 pieces, and like I said, is completely minifigure scale. It is all entirely brick built and shares a lot of the same kind of mixels, joints, and things like that the official Lego one does. And you do have all of these kind of three little heads which are attached on, two of which are using clips. Now do keep in mind that with this particular model, these pieces are used, so at least in my kind of experience, I found that the hinge joints on these types of pieces that aren't like kind of fresh out of the box can be a bit looser, so you can kind of see how the heads sort of flop around there. I think that's purely down to the fact that it is kind of used pieces with this. Now in terms of price, this model is supposedly supposed to cost around the same as the Fluffy Encounter set itself, which again will change on where you buy your bricks from, whether that be Bricks and Pieces or Bricklink, and the prices of those types of things fluctuate all the time, so you might be on kind of the cheaper end, it might be slightly on the higher end. Now starting off, I want to take a look at Fluffy's three brick built heads, so I'll kind of detach one and we can have a close look at it. Now for a brick built head, I think this looks very accurate, even down to just the eyes, like the fact that you can't really get a proper eyepiece, so I really like the fact that there is kind of the yellow beady eyes. I love the way the mouth is done, however this bit at the bottom is kind of flimsy just because it is attached via two studs, so it is kind of easy to knock off in comparison to a lot of the other things, but I think the overall shape of the head looks really good. I do like the fact that the kind of dark brown is mixed in there, even though those kind of angled pieces do stick out slightly on the sides. I guess it's not too bad because it kind of looks like fur. The ears as well, just being those little kind of penguin nose pieces. I always think of that going back to Lego Batman, but overall I do think the head is built pretty well and they were nice and easy to assemble as well. Just these teeth pieces look really good here. I guess if anything, I would have kind of liked to see the bottom of Fluffy's mouth be dark brown instead of black completely, but that's really the only complaint I have here. And then these clips attach onto these pieces here, and you can adjust them up and down, and the one on the center is actually attached via a ball joint kind of mixels piece there. Now in terms of the overall shape of Fluffy, he is very long. Now we don't really get a good look at the side of Fluffy, so to me it kind of feels a bit too elongated, and kind of looking at the tail, I know it's a bulldog tail, but it does feel just a tiny wee bit stumpy. I would have loved to see some sort of like branch piece, kind of like the actual Lego set does, rather than just this cone piece. But in terms of like the overall body shape, specifically in terms of his back, all of these kind of arched pieces and curved pieces and wedges look incredible, and it is very, very nicely smoothed off. I feel like the only thing I would say is maybe have like a tile or something on top of there, but even then the entire thing is practically smooth. There aren't too many exposed studs, which I love to see. These front arms as well are built really nicely. There is a little bit of movement there kind of in the shoulder joint and by the feet, but you can't really stand him up all too high because of the way the back legs work. Now before I talk about those back legs, it is also important to note that this Fluffy kind of has the same syndrome as well as the kind of regular brick built one, in that his shoulders are quite wide, although luckily because of the heads you don't really notice it too much on this model unless you kind of look for the top. You can kind of see how wide his little shoulders are there. but I feel like that purely just comes down to the fact that these joints are kind of sticking out on the sides so that there is a bit more range of motion, like you can bring his arms and legs up all the way over here, whereas if you kind of attached it inside the body a bit more, you wouldn't get that same mobility. Oh dear, I just knocked off an ear. Now, looking at the back, unfortunately, I feel like this is definitely the weakest part of the mock. These legs are pretty flimsy. As you can see, they kind of pop off, and that purely comes down to just build technique. The mixels joints themselves are very strong and things like that, but the actual leg is attached just by one stud, and then you've got these tiles on the sides to make it look a bit smooth, but because they are these longer kind of 1x2s, they can fall off very easily and they slide around and things like that, and it really kind of reduces the amount of mobility on the legs I've found. To me personally, if I was building this set, and maybe you want to do this modification if you do buy the instructions, is just add some more 1x1s here. You will see more of that gray mixels joint, unfortunately, but at least it means you don't have kind of pieces falling off left, right, and center. And as you can kind of see here, this then attaches onto the arm. Oops, I added that on the wrong spot there. So then the leg just attaches on like this, and as you can see, because it's only a one stud connection kind of holding the entire leg together, it does get pretty weak. Now, as well, when you take off those side pieces, it means it's a lot easier to move around the leg. You can move the foot around a bit better, and you can move this other leg around a bit better, but you can see how easily that can fall off, which is why I wouldn't recommend this as sort of a play scale fluffy at all. Now, also by taking off those side pieces, it means you can kind of rotate it around at that one stud connection and gives you a tiny bit more mobility and posability there in the legs. So yeah, again, I would highly recommend having some 1x1 studs rather than these kind of 1x2s, unless you put them on at the very end once you've posed fluffy and you know they're not really going to fall off as easily. And that to me is really just the main kind of letdown of this build. I feel like the rest of fluffy is built really well, and even kind of like that mouth, even though it is a bit weak because this is a mock at the end of the day, it doesn't need to have the same stability as a Lego set. This leg is a tiny bit of a letdown, so yeah, definitely don't use this for play. In terms of posability, you can pose it well. It is just very fiddly and might take you a bit longer than you'd probably expect, and same thing with the other leg. It's got the same issues, they're built exactly the same, but once you kind of get it in its position, you are all set to go. One thing I found as well with this fluffy is that the back legs are kind of uneven, or at least they are in my setup. I really can't get him to stand too level. Oh, there we go. I guess that's the closest I've kind of come. Yeah, okay, close enough. And I purely put that down to the back legs. You can get him close enough so that he almost kind of floats in this position, but you've really got to pose these front legs and then just kind of let the back ones follow. But overall, this model is very clean and looks really nice, especially from the front. If you were planning on doing like a third floor corridor and kind of the corridor is like behind you and you're displaying fluffy like this, I think this is a much better version than the original one, even just for display in general. For play, I think because it is a mock, that really does disadvantage it. You can't really play with it too easily. I can see this being really good for toy photography or mock builders or things like that, or even just putting in a display case. I'm gonna chuck it next to the brick built minifigure scale basilisk. But yeah, just those back legs, it really does unfortunately hinder it, but as well, just the fact that the legs are quite stuck out at the front, but at the back they are quite narrow. In that regard, I kind of wish the butt was kind of built up a tiny bit more, but it's not quite as bad as I feel like the other fluffy is, with its like giant shoulders and back and really, really skinny legs. At least the legs in this one are a lot more to scale than the actual fluffy thing itself. So overall, I really like this mock. I think it looks really good. Again, the best part about it is sort of that back and how slick and smooth that is, while also kind of showing off that fur texture and all that. I think that's really good, as well as the heads. These head designs on such a scale look incredible, especially for something that isn't molded. And honestly, I thought this was kind of what we were going to get when people were talking about a brick built fluffy. So it's really awesome to see a version of this actually exist. So there is the brick built fluffy overall. Like I said, if you do want to purchase the instructions, they are £6 on TommyC Bricks' website, which I will leave in the description. And overall, I do really like this fluffy, as much as I think the back legs do need a tiny bit more work and maybe a bit of modding just to make them kind of work a bit better in the mobility department. For a display piece, I think this looks really well. If you're a mock builder, I think this is incredible, and part of me wishes that Lego did do something like this in this scale and kind of had a bit less of a kind of Hogwarts display, or even just made a bigger set in general. So let me know what you guys think of this mock and this build in the comments down below, and if you plan on kind of building your own. Like I said as well, I will do a video comparing this brick built fluffy to the one that we got this year, so hopefully that will be coming out later this week, and when it does release I will link it in the description as well. But let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below. And until next time guys, I'll see you later.